What is up, guys? It's Amped Up Miles, aka Shane Miles, in the flesh. Here to talk about what happened to me back in 2018, January 6th to be exact. Um, I did release a mini video on Facebook on my Carbon Amp page that talked about some of the events that happened around that time. I kind of want to elaborate on that for a little bit and, hopefully be able to help somebody and change a few perspectives on dealing with amputation. I'm going to be honest and say no, I have not accepted my amputation yet. I'm still working on that, but however, right now I'm only 5 years in, and so going back to that day, it happened roughly around 5:30 in the morning. I had got off of work at 5 a.m. around the Knoxville, Tennessee area, on the outskirts of Knoxville, Tennessee. And with that being said, it was like a normal day. Told all my coworkers goodbye, and I'll say, hey, y'all be safe. About to head out. See y'all tomorrow. I'm gonna go ahead and say tomorrow's not promised. That was the last thing I would expect to happen that night. Well, that morning, honestly. So when I was getting ready to merge onto the freeway, I was driving and I noticed there wasn't any cars around me. The roads were pretty empty, and then, it wasn't much ice or anything, being as it was Tennessee, so it wasn't a lot of ice. But I remember driving and, like a normal day on my way home, and next thing you know, I lost control of the car. And so it come to my realization that I was actually hit, and the left corner of my bumper was spent me towards the guardrail. I actually hit the guardrails trying to gain control of the car. I could not get control of the car where I was struck by another vehicle. At that rate, I was getting ready to head back into the guardrail, but before I hit the guardrail, I saw that truck coming. And I just prepared myself to die. A 53-foot fully loaded truck coming at you. I mean, what else could you do besides, just prepare for the worst? And so with that being said, once I hit the guardrail, I was actually knocked unconscious. And I thank God for that every day, because, I mean, nobody can prepare for that kind of pain. Of course, there's a lot of shock to be had, being, after getting hit by a semi-truck. It sounded like a grenade went off in my ear. I'm not even gonna lie. It was very dramatic. I had no post on the scene, so it was everybody that was involved in the accident wrote me off as dead, pretty much. I was told, I thought I was airlifted to the hospital, but found out I actually made it there by ambulance. I ended up in the first stage of my hospital visit, where I had all my surgeries. I actually could barely see. All I could see is a silhouette of a person. I could not see the actual face. When I woke up from coming out of my surgeries, I actually was surrounded by my family, which, I felt good at that time. I felt loved. The doctors came out immediately, told me that my right leg was amputated on site. So they told me that they could not save it. And so I came to terms, I accepted that. I actually made light of it. I made a joke and said, hey, when can I play basketball? Everybody just started laughing. They said, yeah, that's Shane, And so from that point on, I was actually met in the hospital by an officer that just bombarded me with tickets. I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't wrap my mind around anything that happened. Everything was still fuzzy. Slowly but surely, everything started coming back to me. One of the tickets that I received was reckless driving. They also charged me with the guardrail that I went through. They wanted me to pay for that, which, you know, who gets off of work 5 in the morning and say, hey, let me just take out some guardrails. And so, needless to say, you know, all that stuff was tied up in, you know, the cases and all that stuff. I'm not going to go too far into that, but during my stay in the hospital, I've had about 15 surgeries altogether. I had 7 revisions on my right leg. And I was blessed to have my family here with me every step of the way. I actually broke my neck. I believe it was from my C7 on down, my C7 vertebrae on down. My left leg was actually so mangled that they threatened to amputate that as well. I actually got a ride from my knee all the way down to my ankle. So with that being said, it's still, you know, working that out. Of course, the body in motion stays in motion. The main concern was blood clots. And so I vowed to stay active and, you know, to avoid blood clots. So with that being said, I started making small goals. Well, I want to say for the first 2 weeks of my hospital stay, I couldn't get out the bed. I was in so much pain. I felt like, you know, there's no way a human being could feel this much pain and still be alive. I was actually begging for somebody to just come put a bullet in my head or something. Like, please put me out of my misery. It was a lot of suffering. It was a lot of pain, and it was something that I wasn't ready to deal with. But I embraced it. The docs were really hands-on. They were wonderful, honestly. They were concerned about my pain levels. Of course, they ended up giving me some good meds where, you know, my body started coming off of the pain, but my heart rate was so high that my body was still feeling everything, but I technically wasn't aware of it. Needless to say, you know, I had to stick to a real strict medicine schedule. You know, if I let that pain sneak up on me, it was so bad. If you ever had pain where you just couldn't stop moving, it was so bad. It's just like randomly tears start coming out your eyes and stuff, and you're like, hey, I'm a man, I ain't crying, but, you know, you end up crying anyway. But, you know, I remember around the end of that second week, my family actually tried to get me in a wheelchair, which my left leg was still severely broken, so I couldn't put weight on it, so I did all bed transfers to the wheelchair. I remember getting a few rooms down and not being able to bear it. Like, I was in so much pain. I was begging, hey, take me back to the bed. I need this, I need that, you know, please up my dosage. And the doctors told me, hey, if we up your dosage anymore, you'll be induced in a coma. And I was like, no, I don't want that. They said, yeah, we had to tube feed you. And I was like, no, I don't want that. So I actually, you couldn't see it in some of my pictures, but I actually had a massive gash on my forehead, which I think gave me a minor concussion. I did have a small memory loss, but it was nothing major. You really couldn't notice it. You know, I carried on like normal. I was actually visited by my coworkers. You know, everybody was so loving, caring, and understanding, and, you know, they encouraged me every step of the way. And once I got to that month mark, they were waiting on some things to clear with insurance, so I would be able to transfer to PTOT, which was actually in another facility. And so I was transported by ambulance to that other facility once everything was approved, and I began physical therapy, a little bit of occupational therapy, and so my legs were useless, so they was just working on upper body. That's all I had to work on was upper body. I couldn't do barely any toe touch pivots. It was it was rough. It was rough. Um, I actually went through the program, at, I want to say halfway through, it was like 2 weeks in. They were getting ready to send me home because I needed to be able to toe touch pivot in order to stay in the hospital. And so they were trying to get approval for me to actually be able to start using my legs because there was nothing else they can do with my upper body. My upper body wasn't the issue. And so right before they was getting ready to send me home, might I add, I did not have a wheelchair. And so they're getting ready to release me out of the hospital with no wheelchair. I have like no working limb down there. Nothing was working. So I just felt like I was gonna just crawl out the hospital or something. But I actually had a nurse. I had actually two nurses. One, she told me she had a son that was about my age, and she went to bat for me. Like she went to war. She went to war with the insurance company to get me approved for the wheelchair, the sliding board for me to transfer from the bed to the chair. She got me everything I needed. And also my other nurse that kind of helped out with that was, she did everything for me. And she made sure, I didn't skip no meals. I was on time with my meds. She was like my hospital mom. And so, needless to say, when I'm fussing, she's like, quit crying like a big baby. And so, and it was brought to my attention that she was doing all of this for me, and she was actually battling cancer. So, with that being said, that was a strong woman. She motivated me from the start. The fact that you can sit here and help somebody else, and you literally fighting for your life. And here I am complaining about, my limbs and stuff. I didn't have no terminal illness, At some point I could recover and live. She was in a war of uncertainty. And so I admire her for that. And so, she got me, back in good health. At some point, I was able to get in the wheelchair when I actually started toe touch pivoting. It meant everything to me to just, I only had that one leg to stand on, but I stood on that one leg and stared in the bathroom mirror. And all I could see is like from here on up. And I was like, I feel normal. Just standing. That was, honestly want to say that was goal number one. Because when I stood and looked in the mirror, I didn't see, what has happened to me. I actually saw shame, and I saw hope. I saw that everything was going to be okay. Needless to say, I ended up getting released from the hospital. I had my wheelchair. So this was like the end of it was like a little over 2 months in hospital stays altogether. And so I got released to go home. And at this point, when I got into my accident, I had to let my apartment go. Needless to say, I had to kind of like start all over, but I actually had a PICC line at this time, which went all the way to my heart, and the doctors wouldn't clear me to travel. And so I was actually trying to get back to my family in Michigan, but they were telling me it was extremely risky to travel with the PICC line in due to the risk of infection, and that I would have to strictly be on a schedule with taking my antibiotics to avoid infections. Which, of course, it scared me straight. I don't want infections or nothing else. You go through all of that, and you get an infection that threatens your life anyway. So I was trying to avoid that. Needless to say, I sticked around in Tennessee, so I could do some recovering, which I stayed with some good friends of mine, Miss Ashley, and honestly, these folks, I call Ashley drill sergeant. you know, um, for the most part, I know I had doctor's appointments and stuff I still had to go to. I could not walk. For the most part, if nobody was available, I would catch the bus. Um, and the way I would get motivated to catch the bus is I know I had to go there, and I know I needed to, you know, do a few things in occupational therapy to get me set up to go to wound care, which I never been to wound care, so I don't, I never knew what was gonna go on in wound care. So at this point, I'm still pretty fresh in everything. My pain level were pretty intense due to the simple fact that because of the opioid addiction, I could not have meds. So it took me about a solid 2 weeks to get used to the pain, and that was the worst 2 weeks ever. Like the pain, like how I'm looking right now, I would pretty much just be watery eyes constantly because of the pain level. I mean, I talk normal, but the pain level was so intense that it was impossible for me to stop tears from coming out of my eyes. So, with that being said, it took me about a solid 2 weeks to get used to the pain and to be able to, carry on throughout my days. The only thing they were able to give me was gabapentin nerve pills, nerve blockers. It did not work for me. I think they had like 20 side effects. I had like 19 of them. So needless to say, I wasn't gonna take that too much longer. It worked for the first couple of times I took it, but after that, I didn't want to take it anymore. It was just too many side effects. And so I had my drill sergeants, Ashley, Miss Angelina, brother Demetrius. They stayed on me. They made sure that I was handling business. They were always pushing me to, keep on going. I had my kids that were looking at me. I couldn't give up for them. I was determined to get back in the working world. At this point, I didn't have disability. I didn't have really any income. I couldn't work. So I was kind of like a sitting duck and pretty much at everybody's mercy. Just taking a bath or a shower was tough. I was missing my right leg at the time, and I was missing my right leg in general, but just getting in the tub, you had to, it depended on which way the faucets were facing. It was kind of difficult to get into the tub. I remember I didn't have like what you call a bedside commode where you can, use the bathroom if you had to. So there were times where I had to make a mad dash to the bathroom, and I was, I couldn't get on my wheelchair, or if it wasn't that, my wheelchair was too wide, so I ended up literally military crawling up the hallway trying to get to the bathroom, and I remember it was all upper body because I had to grab a hold of the bathroom sink and everything I could think of just to get up onto the toilet. Now, of course, I couldn't stand to, use it like normal, so I had to sit down for everything, and that was tough because when you had to go, you didn't have time to like prep to go or anything like that, or just get up and go. It was literally an all-out war trying to get to the bathroom, and it was just the simple things. And I guess from that point on, I was determined to eliminate those obstacles that really started the first stages of the mini goals. I said, hey, um, it started from me trying to catch that bus, and all I had was a wheelchair, and all I could do was crawl. I got the wheelchair to the porch, and from there, I said, well, I got to get this wheelchair off this porch. And so I ended up throwing the wheelchair down the steps, and I crawled down the steps, got up in my wheelchair, and rode on up the street and got on the bus and went to these doctor's appointments. And every time I would come past and go back to the house, and I would just look at the front yard, and I'd just sit there and say, it would be nice to just be able to stand in the front yard again. And so I set my mind towards that. I started working towards doing everything it would take to stand in the front yard. It may not seem like much. I mean, y'all probably thinking, hey, I can go stand in my front yard at any time, but me, I couldn't get to the yard without a wheelchair. I could, of course, fall out of the wheelchair and roll around in the grass, but that, to me, that didn't count. So my main priority, like my biggest goal, was to stand up right. I despise the wheelchair. I needed the wheelchair and I relied on the wheelchair, but I knew for a fact I did not want to stay in the wheelchair. At this point, I had to do some more therapy in order to be seen for my first leg. They were telling me I may need to go to wound care, but after a few follow-up visits and everything, they saw that I was healing pretty fast. And so I actually didn't get a chance to go to wound care. They told me to go ahead and start getting fitted for a prosthesis. So I did, needless to say, I was battling severe PTSD at that time. So my first appointment to get my prosthesis I was pretty much hammered. So I was drunk as ever. I actually didn't drink before I went. I drunk the night before, but I drunk so much that it carried over. So I was still, at it. And at this point, I could weight bear on my left leg. I had a big old boot on, but I was weight bearing. And so I actually got a set of crutches, and I was trying to crutch into which was provided by my mom. Thanks, Mom. So I actually had my first set of crutches, and I was trying to crutch on into my appointment, leave the wheelchair in the hallway. And when I crutched, the prosthetist was like, hey, can you, go ahead and have a seat in this room? And so I'm sitting here crutching. Needless to say, I'm drunk, y'all. I am completely drunk. So I'm crutching. I get into this room. And so I sit the crutches. I lean it up against the wall, and I leaned over and fell like a sack of bricks. And so I ended up hitting my limb on the edge of a metal chair. And, it was so much adrenaline at that point. I was like, hey, it's like, we could do this another time. And I said, oh, no, this is the first time you get in my leg. I'm not stopping, no goals. Let's get this done, And so he was like, you all right? And I said, yeah, I'm okay. I got up, sat down in the chair, and the pain hit me full force. And I was like, oh, no, I am not all right. So needless to say, he was like, no, we can just go ahead and reschedule this. I said, no, pain at all. I'm going to go ahead and get this test fit for this socket. And so, no, I did. I went through the whole process. It was extremely painful because everything was still new down there. Everything was still fresh. And here I am. I just beat the heck out of it on the edge of a chair. And I'm sitting here like, all right, I'm not gonna be able to progress if I'm gonna just have this mentality. And so, moving on from that, I was actually pretty excited that I think it was about all of 2 weeks. So 2 weeks later, they called me and said, hey, we got your leg in. And I said, all right, I'm about to come pick it up. And I'm sitting here scrambling. I'm like, how am I gonna get a ride to get over there? Because this is like all the way on the far west side of town that the buses didn't reach. And so I was like, I gotta go get this leg. And My guardian angel, Miss Angelina, came through. So Shane, quit your crying. I'm gonna go ahead and get you to this appointment. You know, you get this leg. And so I'm like, ooh, thank you. And so, needless to say, I go and I go pick up my leg, and I'm grinning from ear to ear. I said, I'm gonna start walking. And needless to say, it took me a little bit to start working up towards walking. I was still in a wheelchair, so they told me to wear the leg when I go to physical therapy so they can, work on some exercises with me. And so I went ahead and, put the leg on, jumped in my wheelchair. With the leg, of course, it was easier. This time I didn't have to throw my wheelchair down the steps. I just, kind of picked it up and slid down the steps on my backside and took the wheelchair with me. I wore the prosthesis in the wheelchair, and I got around on the bus and finally made it to my physical therapist. And so I'm like, all right, he had me trying to practice on standing. At this point, I didn't, it was too much pain of standing with the prosthesis on. So, I wasn't too great with that. And then I couldn't catch myself with the left leg, if that makes sense, because it was still pretty bad in the healing stage. It was hurting bad. And so I could stand, but catching myself was a whole nother ball game. So I could not afford to fall. And so, needless to say, we kind of backed off from too many leg exercises. And as far as that involves standing and walking. Now, sorry guys. So, I ended up, my appointment was over with that day, so I got back in my wheelchair and get ready to jump on the bus. I'm wheeling to the bus stop, and I get on the bus and everything. It's crazy because when I used to ride the bus in high school, we used to see the folks get on with the wheelchair. I'm like, man, they doing the most, and everybody had to stand back, wait, and the person on the wheelchair get on in the bus. And I was like, man, I wonder how that person in the wheelchair felt. Now I got front row seats to that because now everybody had to wait so they can get my handicapped cell phone to the bus. And handy capable. And so the bus driver get me strapped in and everything. And it was I had to get a transfer because it stops at the downtown bus station. This is still in Tennessee. And so I get to the bus station, and all of a sudden I got to use the bathroom. I said, man, I hope I don't miss my bus. And so I'm sitting here, hardcore wheelchair, up the hallway trying to get into the bathroom. I get to the bathroom, and somebody took the handicap stall. So needless to say, I gotta go. And so I ended up getting frustrated. I had a lot of aggression. I don't know, something came over me. I was like, man, this guy in this handicap stall, and he not even handicapped. And so I get up, and I'm frustrated, and I start walking to the stall, and I stopped, and I was like, wait a minute. And I'm walking. Like, I am real deal walking. And immediately started crying. As I almost just did now. But yeah, it was intense, never thought that I would even get nowhere close to walking like that. I mean, needless to say, I was walking like a zombie, but every step counted in my book. And so every step I'm sitting here, I said, all right, now I'm at the stall. I got this boot on. I got this prosthesis on. I got these shorts on because I'm like, I couldn't wear pants at the time. Everything was still too swollen. And so I'm like, all right, now I got to get back to my wheelchair. It's all the way across the bathroom. And so I walked to the sink, holding on to everything, bracing. I, put my elbow on the sink, and I'm washing my hands. And then I back up, and I turn around slightly, but still holding on to the sink. And I was like, I got to get back to my wheelchair. And so ended up taking a deep breath, and I walked to my wheelchair. Needless to say, I was so mentally motivated that, you know, the pain, I didn't notice the pain. You know, I was in pain, no doubt, but I didn't take notice of it. I didn't acknowledge it. I didn't care for it. I was just overjoyed to be walking. And so from there, you know, it was, you know, it was only progression from there. And so every day I would like practice walking from like the kitchen to the dining room, back to the living room, and might I add, I still got Drill Sergeant Ashley there helping me along the way, walking back and forth. Um, you know, I was practicing cooking, and you know, it was a lot of things that I would do to, you know, kind of bridge the gap in, you know, my recovery process. You know, try to, you know, bring things along, and so. Needless to say, and so at some point, you know, of course, I get the PICC line removed and all this good stuff, and now I'm back up in Michigan, and so I get up to Michigan, and my folks, they say, hey, you know, I don't want you getting up, you know, we got this, we get you anything you need, you know, don't worry about that plate, don't worry about this cup, don't worry about none of that, just sit there, we got this. And I was always so hard-headed because, you know, I wouldn't wear the leg, but I would just pop up and, you know, try to crawl up the hallway, and I would try to, you know, walk and stand, and, oh, I got this. And at this point, I was gifted a walker from the insurance company, where, you know, I would take this, which is crazy because you think a walker is simple. It is not simple. Every time I stood up on that walker, I would have it so close to me and just fall back like a stiff board. And when I tell you, I hit the floor all the time. But needless to say, you know, I was determined to walk. I despised a walker because no matter what I did, I was going to move slow in the walker. I wanted crutches more so than a walker, but I was not getting in a wheelchair. I didn't want to deal with the wheelchair. And so I actually was sinking back into depression. I was getting frustrated that I'm still dealing with being an amputee. You know, all this is still new to me. I'm thinking, hey, at some point my leg will grow back. And I kid you not, I had that mindset, like, hey, it's gonna come back. My leg is gonna come back, like in hardcore denial, borderline shock, if you wanna put it that way. I was like, there has to be something that, you know, that I don't have to continue being an amputee. So I was just in hardcore denial. And, you know, I started thinking about jumping back into drinking, and, you know, I was still doing my physical therapy recommendations that they gave me from the hospital, you know, still, you know, trying to work out and all that good stuff. But still also dealing with the depression. I would literally crawl out of the recliner chair that I used to sleep in all the time. I know that was Pop's chair, but hey, sorry Pops. But I used to scoot back and forth from that recliner chair on the floor all the way to these like set of dumbbells, and I used to try to curl those, and, you know, I do some crunches, you know, try to do some sit-ups or something, you know, just to stay in motion at this point, because they were trying to put me on blood thinner. So of course I'm freaking out thinking I'm getting blood clots if I don't move around too much. And needless to say, you know, I just got, I know I kind of went over the top on working out, and I just kept working out, wouldn't stop. And you know, next thing I know, you know, trying to battle this depression, I actually started researching amputee groups. And behold, I mean, right in Alabama, right where my kids are, which I was trying to get to Alabama anyway to be around the kids, ran into a guy named Thomas Leonard, who actually brought me out of all of the depression. I mean, he pushed boundaries, pushed limits, like, hey, you know, all this that you're going through is not gonna stop your everyday lifestyle. He was always talking about, hey, you can go skiing, you can bike ride, you can bowl, you can, you know, do this event, do that event, marathons, 5K, 3Ks, all that. He would literally keep me in the loop, keep me well informed, and I'm actually truly grateful that I actually ran into him. When he ran into me, I don't know, but I was referred to him, and it's like the second I found out he was in Alabama as well, and I was like, well, that's awesome because I was heading there to, you know, be around my kids anyway. It was the whole point of my recovery. You know, I was trying to get towards the kids, and you know, I just started doing little by little. By the time I made it to Alabama, I was, you know, walking pretty decent. You know, I could walk to the kitchen effortlessly. I was, you know, small walking. You know, I wouldn't say, because I would hurt. You know, I would have to. As long as I was walking, I was fine. I would walk, but as soon as I sat down, I had to take the leg off because it hurted. I had some vascular issues going on. I was swelling a lot. Everything was still new. I still had sores, you know, so, you know, I had to take it easy. I only could wear the leg, I think, no more than 10 hours a day. I had a lot of little stipulations. And so, needless to say, you know, I started increasing my walking activities. I would, you know, walk up and down the driveways. I would try to walk up the street. I would try to walk pathways. I think pathways, I used to, you know, walk maybe a half of a quarter of a mile and sit down, let my legs rest up. You know, I was, you know, feeling the pain. I was into it, but I had this goal that I was going to walk normal and that I would be able to wear pants and be able to fit in with society without nobody seeing, hey, this is this metal guy, you know, the freaking nature, you know, this guy got all this hardware. Why is he looking like that and he's not normal? You know, all the stares that you get in public, you know, which is why I'm excited that, you know, I met this amazing group of amputees that just didn't care. You know, they didn't care about people staring at them in public. They didn't care, you know, about any of that. I had got to a point where I didn't even want to come out the house because I didn't feel like being stared at. I didn't want to be the center of attention. It was just too much, you know, going through depression and all of that on top of that, you know. And so, needless to say, I had to go back to Michigan because I had a, what you call that, disability case. So I had to go up and go to a disability appointment. And when I got up there, they were trying to pretty much make sure that I am indeed disabled. So, and I hate to say it because you pretty much have to be on your deathbed in order to get disability. I had a shot left leg. It wouldn't even support my weight at bends. Like, you know, I could fall at any time. You know, I have a prosthetic leg, and it has I literally only have about that much limb left below the knee. Like, literally no room to play. Like, should have been above the knee. But you know, I still had I don't think I had my neck brace on at that time, but you know, the doctors was like, I think you'll be okay. You know, which I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be okay, but I can't go to work, you know, because I'm still pretty messed up. Oh yeah, you're all right. I don't think you need disability. You know, you can at some point recover and go back to work. I said, yeah, but that doesn't fix now. Like now I have no income, so I need something. Um, so I don't know what happened. I actually, that appointment was over with, and I'm pretty much thinking I'm not going to get disability. And so I go on about my business, and about 2 weeks later, they called me, hey, the doctor that spoke with you wanted to see if you come in for your appointment. And I was like, but I've already had an appointment, and y'all pretty much say I wasn't going to get approved for it. And so this second appointment, apparently the doctor had lost all my documents. As if I never even been there that time. And so I thought that was weird. I go back into this appointment, and at this point, I was in a lot of pain when I went to this appointment for some reason. And I remember my mom was telling me, hey, you need to sell it. You need to let them know exactly how disabled you are. I'm like, I'm not an actor. I can't act like I'm just messed up. But this day I was in a lot of pain. There was a lot of issues going on. So needless to say, I didn't have to act. And so I don't know what happened with this appointment, but they actually approved me this time. I've waited from the initial start all the way up until the point I got it was 10 months. I waited 10 months to start receiving Social Security. They cut me one big check, and then of course that came and went because the 10 months, surely you're behind on everything. So I had to get caught up on some bills and all that good stuff, which by that I didn't have a lot of bills from after giving up my apartment and everything. But I had to get a cell phone, all that good stuff. I had to get some clothes, all my stuff that were in the apartment, like my clothes and stuff. I didn't have none of that. I had to start over from scratch. So I started getting disability, and then I ended up going back to Alabama. I actually linked up with Thomas, and I met him face to face for the first time at a support group. And I guess, he was expecting, somebody that was, unmotivated and depressed and, really negative. And I came in with just high spirits, and I'm like, hey, what's up, y'all? What's going on? And I was like, I don't mean to sound weird, but I said, can I take my leg off? It is really hurting. He said, yeah, man, go ahead, take your leg off. And the way that I was walking, he was like, are you above the knee? And I was like, no, I'm not above the knee. I said, I just can't bend it. And he was like, why you can't bend your knee? And the socket went so far up over my knee, it made me look like I was above the knee amputee walking. And he was like, no, that's not right. And so he ended up getting me plugged in with hanger. Needless to say, he took me right over to this outgoing gentleman named Gerald Deason. Needless to say, Gerald, he's also an amputee, same as me, right below the knee. Was extremely motivated. He was real big on golf tournaments and everything, and so he was like, hey, I'm gonna get you in the leg, and I'm gonna get you out on that field, and you're gonna be playing golf in no time. And I was like, I don't see this happening. I'm barely walking, I'm practicing, but barely walking. I am walking, but barely. So needless to say, he made me a leg, and literally 2 days later, I was in a golf tournament. And so actually walking the field, I was all over the course, he taught me how to, play golf and everything. And I enjoyed it so much. I was like, I got to do this again. And I used to make fun of my brother for that, Speaking of which, being an amputee and dealing with that stuff, you got to stay mentally busy. you know. It takes a toll on you, and man, I can tell you, my brothers, they showed up and showed out. Um, they were getting me out the house. They were like, "Hey, Shane, you want to play pool?" Not to jump all over the place, but I have to give a shout out to my brothers. Um, Literally, my brothers made sure I didn't need for anything. They got me through my gray area, not having disability. They did a lot for me, as well as my mom. Um, Went above and beyond. I think everybody else was still like kind of in shock, like, hey, this all happened to Shane. Um, I was getting checked on constantly. It's good to feel like you got somebody in your corner. Because for the most part, I stayed pretty isolated from my family. I was by myself, like almost 1,000 miles away, and I moved down to Tennessee still as a teenager, and it was pretty scary. But being in Detroit, that I just didn't feel like it was a good environment for me to be in, for the most part. But needless to say, I went to Tennessee for opportunities, and just pretty much make it happen. But fast forward back to Alabama, I met these awesome group of people, with Thomas and Gerald and I can't forget about my brother Corey. Man, these folks been there for me hand over fist. Mark McCarty, all Jessica Jones, JJ. It's just I met some great people that just changed perspectives all the way around, and I don't know where I would be if it wasn't for that. So that's what motivated me to do this, because I feel like people, if anybody that's going through anything that I went through in my situation, I want to encourage you that you get connected with somebody in a similar situation that will be able to share some insight on, how to get some help, how to get better, how to set these small goals. If you need an accountability partner, I'm actually available to be an accountability partner. I'm actually ramping back up on social media. I kind of, stayed out for a while because of COVID, back when I was starting to get involved in events and all that good stuff. I was actually highly motivated. I went by the name of Amped Up Miles, and that's all people know me as. Oh, they go Amped Up Miles, they go Amped Up Miles. And, I didn't know, that name, was going to take off like that. But, I would get people to say, hey, that's Amped Up Miles right there, I really want to get back to that. I want to get back to motivating people. I want to see people change. I don't want to see people, down and out. I also want to give a shout out to my brother Steve. He actually passed away last year. Was also one of the ringleaders in getting me back going. Awesome guy. He, put in time. He was just always making sure I was mentally okay. It was a lot to deal with. Going through everything that I had to go through. It was mentally draining, physically draining. But like Jessica always said, it's 80% mental and 20% physical. But I can honestly say my entire journey has been straight spiritual. And I say that is because mentally, physically, I felt like I was spiritually led to be where I'm at now. Like I felt like there was purpose in me getting better. You know, it was quite depressing to have to put off, a couple of years due to recovery. Like, hey, you know, if you ever went to a club or a bar, you can't do any of that stuff because you say, hey, I gotta recover. So you can't all that stuff, activities, vacations, all that stuff. There's no like random spontaneous traveling, none of that stuff that you deem normal was normal because, hey, I'm a recovering amputee and, I can't just jump in a car and drive at that time. I depended on a lot of people and I had to brace for at least 2 years down the drain due to recovery. And so, yeah, it was mentally exhausting. And honestly, I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for God. Like, I truly, truly, truly thank God with everything in me for sparing my life. At one point, I didn't want this life because I felt like He put me here to suffer, you know. I felt like now that, I was doing pretty decent when before the accident, I was everything was just coming back together. I was getting on my feet, Um, many of you may have known I was going through a divorce, so divorce take a lot out of you. I was trying to get back on my feet. So I was going through a lot, and just when I saw the light at the end of the tunnel, this accident happened. So I was like, God, what's the deal? Like, I felt like He literally put me here to suffer. And so there were times where I did contemplate on taking my own life. But needless to say, God stepped in immediately and pretty much pointed out to me that how rejecting a life that He was able to bless me with, how disrespectful that was. And I will always and forever be grateful that I am where I am now. I wouldn't be there without God and me and God sharing a purpose. He has a purpose for me, and He knows me better than I know myself. And you'd think like, oh, my purpose is this, and I love it and everything. No, God's purpose for you is He knows you better than yourself, and so you think it's for you, but you're really doing it for God. You advancing His kingdom, and you're just happy to do so because you're thinking that's your purpose. But it's the God's will, and I'm here every step of the way on that. But needless to say, with this after this video, I'm actually gonna be more consistent on social media. I'm actually jumping back on social media. I've been trying to, get back into the workout field. I haven't started running yet. I will be progressing. I'm gonna try to film as much as my progression as I can. I do still work a full-time job, which that's insane because I didn't think I would actually work ever. But being on Social Security disability, I mean, they don't pay you enough money to live. I can definitely tell you that. At some point, I was like, hey, I was going to be fine on that until, stuff started coming up and I needed capital and, I needed funds for this, I needed funds for that. Car broke down and I can't wait another 3 weeks to get $500 or so, so needless to say, I upped my goals and so I can get back into the working field. So that's where I'm at now. I work full time. I'm a full time dad. I'm a full time husband now. I did remarry. and I wasn't doing half of what I'm doing now before my amputation. I'm actually doing 3 times more than I was doing before. And if that ain't a testimony within itself, I don't know what is. I'm not the best at storytelling, but I'm gonna tell you what, I'm very genuine, when I say that obstacles can't be eliminated. You can. I mean, you absolutely can get back your life and the living life on your own terms with no limits. You're not a victim of circumstances. Things happen. That's my mom's favorite phrase. Things happen. And you just gotta roll with the punches and get up and keep moving forward. I'm not saying, after amputation, get out the hospital and the next week run a marathon. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying at least keep yourself busy with goals that propel you forward. Do not set goals as if you're not an amputee. So if you setting goals that you had before this situation, you're already self-defeating yourself. I encourage everyone that's dealing with anything remotely close to what I'm going through to set goals that's within your limits, as long as you're progressing. As long as you're progressing. A body in motion, real deal, stays in motion. With that being said, I want y'all to stay tuned to the Carbon app. I will be putting out more videos. I will be getting more involved in activities and events. I just want to say, stay tuned. I will be doing, also I'll be doing some videos that, welcome suggestions and offers. If you're like in some kind of remote town and you're like, hey, I'm not around amputees that often, can y'all get like something going on in my area? I'm entertaining everything at this point, amped up miles, back in the flesh. And so we're gonna hit it hard. Social media platform, follow us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook. It's Carbon Amp across the platform. Reach out to me at any time. With that being said, peace.